You've been staring at reflections for years, convinced you understood every contour until you realize the mirror has lied. You will never decode women's mystery until you integrate your anima, a command, an accusation you've ignored, a voice echoing beneath your skin, a shadow dancing just beyond the flame of your awareness. You keep believing you see clearly, but your vision fractures the moment she appears. You demand logic and dismiss intuition, yet your gut twists in agony when she smiles, and you can't recall the warmth beneath her words. Picture a moonlit corridor where voices whisper from behind heavy doors. You've been taught to bar each portal to lock out the claim of vulnerability. You learn to conquer challenges with iron will, to stand stoic when feelings storm, to brand emotion as weakness. But each locked door holds a fragment of her soul, and without those fragments, you wander a labyrinth of half-truths and disconnected desires. You recall the first time your anima surfaced, a fleeting moment when empathy cracked your armor, when a song evoked tears you couldn't explain, when someone's gaze penetrated the void you'd so carefully cultivated. You told yourself it was nothing. You shrugged off a siren that beckoned you toward your hidden self. Now imagine all those locked doors flung wide, each corridor flooded with light that trembles against the walls like living water. Behind every portal is a piece of a tapestry you never bothered to assemble the dream. You abandoned the soft vulnerability you buried, the compassion you believed irrelevant. You sense there's a wholeness within you, but you've never glimpsed it, because you refused to embrace your anima, the feminine soul within. Why does this voice terrify you? Because it threatens the fortress of your identity. You built your world on rational pillars: success, control, strength. You learned to seize, conquer, dominate. But empathy won't bow. Compassion won't be commanded. Your anima exists to frustrate your schemes, to reveal the flaws in your logic, to demand you feel the world instead of just thinking it. In the hush before dawn, you hear her song, soft, insistent questioning. It asks, what if strength arises from tenderness? What if wisdom blooms in the fertile soil of emotion? What if mastery isn't about domination, but integration? You push these questions aside with mantras of reason, but they linger like footprints leading you deeper into a forest on fire. You remember Nietzsche's proclamation, becoming who you are requires shedding who you have been. Yet you cling to roles you inherited, roles that demanded you smother your anima beneath ambition. You haven't shed the weight of that injunction. You carry it like a stone in your chest, and it muffles every beat of your heart. And then Carl Jung whispers the anima bridges conscious life to the vast expanse of the unconscious. Without her, you live half alive, deaf to the music of your own soul. You've been wandering a desert without water, thirsting for a unity you cannot name. This is your great question. How do you unlock that hidden door? How do you stand naked before a mirror and recognize the stranger smiling back? How do you reclaim the parts of your humanity that culture taught you to hide? The corridors are endless, but the key lies within the echo you refuse to hear. You've struggled to conquer the world. Now you must conquer yourself. You've silenced the song. Now you must learn to listen. You've sought answers outside. Now you must turn toward the shadow that lives in your own soul. What will you sacrifice to hear her voice at last? You step into a hidden chamber of your psyche, and the air tastes of echoes, echoes of stories you never told, wounds you never healed. This void wasn't born overnight. It was carved by generations of injunctions and expectations. You inhabit a lineage where emotion was a liability and sensitivity a defect. From boyhood, you heard phrases like "man up" and "stop crying," shaping neural pathways that routed feeling into silent cul-de-sacs. Your anima, the voice that could have guided you toward balance, was banished to the attic of your unconscious. Centuries of patriarchal edicts cemented this exile. In ancient Greece, reason reigned supreme. The feminine principle was relegated to the realm of the irrational. You inherit that bias in the architecture of your mind. Your left hemisphere taught to proclaim dominance. Your right hemisphere muted whenever compassion stirred. Nietzsche's scathing critique of moral slave mentalities resonates here. You were socialized to despise softness as weakness, to valorize conquest over communion. But what if the true Achilles heel of your culture is its fear of integration? Jung argued that the anima is not merely an inner woman but the archetype of relationality, creativity, and renewal. When you sever that connection, you become a fragment, a machine of goals without grace. You pour energy into achievement, yet feel endlessly hollow. Frankl's research in concentration camps revealed that purpose cannot thrive in a vacuum devoid of love. You chase success as if it were a panacea, but your achievements feel sterile without the warmth of emotional connection. Your personal history echoes these grand narratives. Recall the time you faced heartbreak and stiffened your spine instead of letting tears flow. Your father may have taught you that sorrow was a sign of failure, or perhaps the world taught you to retreat when vulnerability threatened your sense of self. You learned to compartmentalize intellect here, emotion there. Never the twain shall meet, but each compartment became a prison cell, rigid and isolating. Science confirms this fracture. Studies on emotional intelligence show that suppressing feelings not only damages mental health, but also weakens physical resilience. Your cortisol spikes, your immune defenses falter, your sleep dissolves into anxious half-rest. Meanwhile, those who cultivate empathy and embrace their anima report heightened creativity, better relationships, and a deeper sense of meaning. Yet you resist these findings, clinging to outdated doctrines of stoicism and detachment. Philosophical wounds run deeper still. You absorbed the Cartesian dictum, "I think, therefore I am," equating existence with cognition alone. You worship at the altar of thought, while your anima, the source of your intuitive wisdom, remains a supplicant at the temple door. When Nietzsche declared, "There are no facts, only interpretations," he invited you to question the tyranny of your rational mind. But your ego interpreted this as license to tighten its grip, to interpret emotionality as illusion rather than invitation. Even your quest for self-actualization can become a trap. You read self-help books, practice mindfulness for 10 minutes a day, and tick the boxes of psychological wellness, all the while avoiding the radical journey inward that Jung advocated, the descent into the underworld of your unconscious. You fear that if you peer too deeply, you might unleash the chaos you've suppressed. Yet that chaos, if channeled, could become the wellspring of your greatest insights. Perhaps trauma sealed the deal. Painful experiences can warp your anima into a shadow figure, a haunting presence that sabotages trust and dims your capacity for compassion. You project resentment onto every relationship, convinced that intimacy equals betrayal. Or you idolize women as saints or sirens, caught in a pendulum swing between worship and fear. Jung called this projection a psychic pattern in which unintegrated aspects of self are cast onto others. You see only illusions, never the human being standing before you. Social history compounds this. You navigate a world where masculinity and femininity are forced into binary cages. You learn that to be real men, you must reject your anima. To be good women, you must suppress your animus. But nature abhors such extremes. Integration is the law. Viktor Frankl wrote that survival depends on finding meaning, and meaning arises when you reconcile opposing forces within you. You carry the code to your own liberation, but you've misplaced it in a drawer stamped personal development and forgotten to open it. So you drift unaware of the tether binding you to half-truths. Each time you interact with a woman, colleague, friend, lover, you feel an unspoken barrier. You sense a puzzle whose pieces refuse to click. In intellectual debates, you triumph, yet in moments of tenderness, you flounder. Your anima hovers at the threshold, urging you to leap, to let her shape your world. But you stand paralyzed, rooted to the floorboards of convention and fear. And so this hidden problem persists, a collective neurosis, passed down from philosopher kings to modern executives, from warlords to corporate managers, from father to son. It thrives in boardrooms and battlefields alike, in seminar rooms and social media threads. You are not alone in this exile, yet each of you must undertake the solitary voyage to reclaim your anima. This psychological amnesia has shaped your life in ways you've barely perceived. Now you feel its weight, the sense that something vital is missing, a thrum of longing in your chest. You glimpse its outlines in moments of awe, standing before a sunset or cradling a newborn, yet you dismiss it as romanticism. But it is the clarion call of your anima, demanding you remember the forgotten language of your soul. How long will you wander in this half-realm before you answer her summons? Each morning you wake with a dull ache behind your eyes, as if your soul is hungover from a party you never attended. Your heart pounds in rhythms you cannot name, anxious beats that betray a deeper dissonance. You brush it off as stress too much, work, too little sleep. Yet the real culprit lurks unseen, stitched into the fabric of your being, the exile of your anima. In intimate moments you feel an invisible wall rising between you and those you love. When she reaches for your hand, you hesitate, afraid that emotion will sweep you into unfamiliar territory. You give advice with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, but shrink from comforting words that drip with vulnerability. Your relationships flicker like half-burnt candles, bright in theory, extinguished in practice. Ambition propels you, yet satisfaction remains elusive. You conquer targets, deliver presentations, close deals, but each victory tastes of ash. Your mind celebrates successes, your heart whispers of emptiness. The cortisol coursing through your veins burns dreams into bitterness. Studies show that men who suppress emotions face higher risks of heart disease, depression, and substance abuse. Yet you soldier on, believing stoicism to be armor rather than a cage. You remember the time you argued with your partner over something trivial, a misplaced word, a tone too sharp. You resorted to logic, recited facts, and thought you had won. But that night silence stretched between you like a canyon. She retreated into her own sorrow, and you returned to your apartment feeling both triumphant and hollow. You wonder, why does victory feel like defeat? Work offers no refuge. You excel, yet creativity stalls. When you stare at a blank page or a blank canvas, nothing emerges. You cling to routines, meditation apps, morning jogs, cold showers, but they scratch only the surface. Researchers in neuroscience find that creative insight often springs from integrating emotion with thought. Your left brain races ahead. Your right brain waits by the door unheard. Culturally, you stand as an island. In conversations around masculinity, you nod along to platitudes. Men don't cry. Keep a stiff upper lip. You champion mental health on paper, but shy away when someone probes your vulnerabilities. You applaud emotional openness in others, but guard your own secrets with the zeal of a medieval knight. Your anima, once a source of empathy and depth, has become an echo in a vast cathedral of silence. In the boardroom you deliver flawless pitches, afterward you drown in restless insomnia. In the classroom you lecture with authority, afterward you feel a queasy disconnection from your own body. You wonder if success is a mirage shimmering on the horizon of your ambitions. In friendships you mirror strength, but bury tenderness. A close friend calls at midnight, her voice trembling with tears. You listen patient, composed, but offer only solutions. You tell her to reframe her perspective to replace negative thoughts. You never offer the olive branch of shared sorrow, the simple act of saying, "I'm here with you," because you don't know how. Afterwards she drifts away, seeking solace elsewhere. Health deteriorates too. You eat protein bars on the run, subsist on coffee, and skip meals when meetings collide. Your body becomes a machine that executes tasks without complaint until it grinds to a halt. A nagging back pain, a persistent cough, a flare-up of eczema. Each symptom whispers you are not whole. The anima healer of wounds lies dormant, unable to soothe because you refuse to let her in. Emotionally, you teeter on extremes. A casual comment can trigger a tidal wave of anger or shame. A compliment can choke you with self-doubt. You oscillate between narcissistic certainty and crushing insecurity. Viktor Frankl taught that meaning emerges from suffering, but only when you embrace that suffering as part of your story. You chase meaning in achievements, not in the integration of your feelings, so your suffering remains a riddle with no answer. In art and culture, you feel detached. You can analyze a film's structure, dissect its characters in bullet points, but the tears in your eyes baffle you. When the score swells in a symphony, you remain unmoved, wondering what everyone else sees. Music and poetry may stir strangers, but you stand on the shore as a cold wind sweeps across your heart. This disconnection seeps into your very sense of self. You check boxes, career, family, social status, but when someone asks, "Who are you?" you stumble. You give your title, your age, your hobbies, your achievements, but none of it touches the core of your being. You are defined by roles, not by soul. And so you slip into despair without knowing why. You scroll through feeds looking for something that speaks to you. You binge-watch shows that promise catharsis. You experiment with self-help gurus who hawk motivational mantras. But each pill, each download, each watchlist only postpones the inevitable face-to-face with your anima. At your lowest, you glimpse possibilities. You see couples holding hands, strangers hugging in the street, artists weeping on stage. You wonder, how do they access this current? How do they tap into a river of feeling that seems perpetually out of reach? You feel envy, but also hope, a tiny ember flickering in the ruins of your refusal. This is the moment of crisis. You cannot keep living with half your soul in shadow. You cannot keep winning battles on the surface while losing wars within. The walls you built to protect your identity have become barricades to your humanity. You stand at the edge of a chasm, peering into its depths. On the other side, you sense a world of authenticity, creativity, deep connection. You feel dread, but also the stirrings of profound liberation. Your heart trembles with a question that outshines all others. Can you endure the unraveling of everything you thought you knew? You feel a tremor beneath your feet, as if the ground itself is urging you to shift. This is not a gentle breeze, but a storm gathering force, your anima rising from exile. You stand at a crossroads. Continue the worn path of emotional sterility, or pivot into uncharted terrain where vulnerability becomes power. Rebellion begins with the whisper, "Permit yourself to feel." It sounds simplistic, almost banal, yet it is radical within your fortress of reason. You break the first rule by allowing tears to flow when shame burns in your chest. You shatter the second rule by admitting you don't have all the answers. You flout the third rule by speaking your uncertainty aloud. Each confession is a small act of defiance, a dagger aimed at the walls that confine you. In practice, rebellion takes shape as ritual. You carve out space in your calendar, not for meetings but for reflection. You light a candle at dusk and speak to the shadow that has waited patiently for decades. You journal in second person. You feel. You remember. You long. And you read these pages aloud tenderly, as if coaxing a frightened child from under the bed. In these moments, you reclaim fragments of your anima piece by luminous peace. Consider an exercise in radical vulnerability during your next conversation. Instead of delivering solutions, you share your doubt. When she recounts a struggle, resist the urge to fix it. Instead say, "I don't know what to say, but I'm here." Watch how the air shifts. Her shoulders unclench. A bridge assembles itself from your shared uncertainty. You discover strength, not in certainty, but in the courage to stand in the unknown. You introduce another act of rebellion, creative immersion. You abandon the confines of productivity metrics and engage in art for its own sake. You let your hands trace melodies on a piano you haven't touched in years, and you don't stop when performance demands interfere. You paint without measuring strokes or critiquing composition. Your anima blooms in these unscripted moments, guiding your fingers, infusing color with emotion. Next, you commit to emotional transparency. You identify one relationship where you have erected walls of logic, perhaps with a friend, colleague, or family member. You reveal a concealed feeling, gratitude, fear, love, regret. This revelation need not be earth-shattering. It could be a simple acknowledgement. "I've admired your patience when I lost mine." Notice how your voice trembles. Notice how your heart expands. Notice how the barrier collapses, replaced by authentic connection. Rebellion demands ritual and action, but it also thrives on philosophy. You return to Nietzsche with fresh eyes. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. You craft a personal credo to integrate the feminine within, not as an afterthought, but as the guiding force. You reinterpret Frankl's search for meaning as a quest for emotional authenticity rather than external achievement. You reframe Jung's individuation as the art of weaving feminine intuition into your tapestry of thought. As these seeds take root, you stumble into moments of clarity. You catch yourself smiling at loneliness, knowing it will pass. You feel comfortable sitting with discomfort, understanding it signals growth. You begin to see women not as enigmas, but as mirrors reflecting untended parts of your soul. In their laughter, you recognize the spontaneity you repressed. In their tears, you witness the honesty you abandoned. In their resilience, you feel the dormant power you feared. Each encounter becomes a lesson in self-integration, each conversation an invitation to reclaim another shard of anima. Your creativity surges. You draft letters, never sent poems, never published ideas, never voiced. You harness the interplay of logic and feeling to solve problems with empathy-infused innovation. You notice colleagues gravitate toward you not just for solutions, but for your presence, your ability to listen, to hold space. Rebellion does not erase past sufferings, but it transforms them. You transmute regret, the years of ignoring your anima, into compassion for your former self. You forgive the child who hid tears from stern eyes. You honor the adult who built walls to feel safe. You integrate those choices into your narrative without shame. This rebellion ripples outward. Your example beckons others, friends who witness your tears, partners who feel your authenticity, co-workers who sense your balance. You galvanize a movement within your circle, a silent revolution of emotional integration uniting minds and hearts. You stand now, not at the edge of a chasm, but at the threshold of a new continent, an internal landscape where rational thought and feminine intuition cohabit in harmony. You have shattered the binary of weakness and strength. You have forged a path where power emerges from feeling, where wisdom blossoms from empathy. As you breathe in this new reality, you understand rebellion is not a one-time act, but a lifelong allegiance to your anima. It is the vow to listen when the world demands you speak only in facts. It is the promise to embrace every emotion, even those that tremble with fear. It is the daring to live with an open heart, sanctifying each tear, each laugh, each silent moment of wonder. You feel the tremor of truth settle into your bones, a quiet covenant between your skull and your heart that something fundamental has shifted. All the rituals, the tears, the confessions, the creativity, they were way stations on a journey you barely recognized until now. Ahead lies a landscape not of conquest, but communion, where logic and feeling weave into a single tapestry. You stand at the crossroads of two worlds that once seemed irreconcilable. You remember Nietzsche's warning: he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. You realize your greatest adversary was never the external world, but the monster within your own repression, your exile of the anima. In battling vulnerability, you became the very thing you feared, incomplete, unmoored, a titan without a soul. Now in your rebellion you have slain that monster by embracing it, folding it back into yourself. Across your psyche springs of insight bubble up, sudden flashes of understanding that joy and sorrow are siblings, that strength is born when weakness is honored, that love demands not strategy, but surrender. Your anima, once a phantom pain in the corridors of your mind, has emerged as the midwife of your rebirth. You feel her essence in every heartbeat, her wisdom in every breath. Carl Jung spoke of the self as the union of conscious and unconscious, the celestial marriage of opposites. You glimpse this self now, a luminous figure rising within your chest, arms outstretched to gather both your rational mind and your reclaimed emotional depths. You see your life as a painting, each stroke of intellect tinted by the wash of feeling, each burst of passion tempered by the precision of thought. It is neither chaos nor order, but a fractal harmony, infinitely complex, yet singularly beautiful. You look outward and witness the world transformed by your integration. Conversations no longer feel like drills, but dances. Disagreements become invitations to explore rather than battles to win. You see women not as mysteries to solve, but as guides who reflect the infinite nuances of your own psyche. In their stories, you recognize your own every joy, every wound, every moment of unguarded authenticity. This is the ultimate truth. You cannot decode the mystery of women or of yourself by erecting higher walls of logic, by sharpening the scalpel of analysis. You decode mystery by dissolving those walls, by inviting the feminine principle into the fortress of your mind. You become both the seeker and the sought, the question, and the answer, the mask, and the face beneath it. In the silence that follows, you hear a final paradox to possess your anima. You must relinquish possession. You must treat her not as a trophy to display, but as a living presence to honor. You must dwell in uncertainty, walk the edge of feeling, without clutching for certainty, and trust that the journey itself holds more meaning than any destination. And so beneath a sky painted with the hues of dawn, you stand unmasked and whole. You feel the weight of every moment you ever denied yourself, but you also feel the lightness of a heart that has finally come home. Will you dare to live here in this liberated space between thought and feeling for the rest of your days? You feel a quiet expansion in your chest, as if a well you feared was poisoned has become a spring of crystal water. Every breath carries the fragrance of reclaimed selfhood, each heartbeat a drum summoning you into fuller being. You realize that integrating your anima is not a one-time event, but an ongoing dance between light and shadow thought, and feeling strength and tenderness. In the mornings ahead, you will wake to tremors of longing not for achievement, but for attunement. You will feel the tug of empathy when injustice strikes far across the world. You will sense the echo of sorrow in a friend's silence, and you will no longer look away. You will harness your reason not as a hammer to shatter emotion, but as a compass guiding toward authenticity. When you face conflict, you will still marshal your logic, but you will listen first to the undercurrent of emotion. You will ask what pain or hope lies beneath these words. You will become fluent in the language of the heart, decoding the subtexts of gesture and sigh. You will discover that every disagreement holds the seed of reconciliation, every clash an opportunity to weave a richer tapestry of understanding. Your creativity will ignite in unexpected ways. You will write stories that pulse with the rhythms of longing and joy. You will paint images that shimmer with insight gleaned from introspection. You will cook meals infused not only with nutrition, but with the poetry of shared nourishment. You will invent solutions that honor both data and desire, forging innovations rooted in empathy. In your career, you will transform leadership from command and control to stewardship. You will mentor colleagues with a blend of challenge and compassion. You will create spaces where vulnerability is celebrated as a source of strength. You will understand that a team flourishes when every member's anima is welcomed, their unique creativity and sensitivity woven into collective purpose. Love, too, will transform into a richer alchemy. No longer will you mistake desire for possession. No longer will you think intimacy means merging until you lose yourself. Instead, you will approach each relationship as a mirror and a canvas, a mirror reflecting your unacknowledged facets, and a canvas upon which you both paint new layers of connection. You will learn that love's greatest gift is not comfort, but exposure that invites growth beyond comfort zones. When you encounter suffering, your own or another's, you will stand fully present, neither recoiling nor over-identifying. You will hold space without judgment, recognizing that empathy is not rescue but presence. You will carry the wounds of the world lightly, like feathers caught on a breeze, rather than wearing them as burdens that bend your spine. Your anima will guide you through seasons of grief and renewal. In winter's deep frost, you will honor sorrow as the earth honors rest, knowing it precedes new life. In spring's first bloom, you will celebrate resilience as the sun celebrates a barren field bursting into color. In summer's blaze, you will savor joy as the air savors heat. In autumn's release, you will let go of what no longer serves, like leaves drifting from an ancient tree. Communities in your orbit will feel this shift. You will spark conversations that pierce surfaces. You will inspire others to question the cost of emotional exile. Your presence will become a lighthouse guiding lost hearts toward integration. You may not intend to lead, but by living in full dialogue with your anima, you will light a path few have dared to tread. And in the final moments before sleep, when night drapes its velvet cloak, you will lie awake and feel the pulse of unity within. You will realize that the anima you integrated is not merely a fragment of your psyche, but the very pulse of life itself, an invitation to dance with the unseen, to converse with the depths, to become a storyteller weaving meaning from raw experience. This is the ultimate truth. Reframed mystery is not a riddle to solve, but a symphony to inhabit. You will never decode women's mystery, or the mystery within yourself, by dissecting it into lifeless parts. You will decode it by entering its melody, by letting it move through you, until you and mystery become one dance. Under the starlit sky of your transformed consciousness, you ask yourself one final haunting question. Will you continue this dance with your anima, stepping boldly into the unknown, or will you retreat once more into the half-life of a mind without its heart?